The elephant in the room is definitely talking about salary in the interview process, whether it's in the beginning of the interview process or during the job offer. This is a topic that most candidates are very nervous to talk about. In this video, I'm going to address this topic, and I'm going to give you some things to think about when you're working with your recruiter or the hiring manager for the company. So, if we haven't met, I'm Jeremy Nichols, headhunter and recruiter, and I help candidates and recruiters as we navigate through this current hiring market. So let's talk salary, right? Let's jump into the topic that, quite honestly, is a little nerve-wracking for a recruiter like myself to talk about because it's such a polarizing topic. I can't tell you how often I'm getting emails and phone calls or direct messages from candidates who are maybe not even working with me on a particular search, but they just want my advice on what to do. And I, of course, will provide that advice. So take the advice that I give you as some ammunition, hopefully giving you confidence while you approach this topic during your next interview. But before I get into that, please like this video, hit the subscribe button, and ring that notification bell for weekly updates on this channel. I'll be updating this channel every single week with topics that I'm hearing from you, candidates, and also recruiters and colleagues of mine on topics that we should be addressing to the community. All right, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is knowing your range. Now, your range should be exactly just that. A range of your salary. A lot of times when I'm doing interviews and I approach the salary, someone will give me their base salary from their current job or their past job. That's not what I'm looking for. As a recruiter, I want to know that range that you have some wiggle room in. And there's a few reasons for that, and I'll jump into that in a minute. But let's just pretend, for argument's sake, that you are 90 to 100. That gives me a good range where I can see what job requisitions are on my desk that you would fit in. I'm not going to call you a candidate and move you forward through the process if you're too far above the range. Now, some people might hear this comment and say, well, does that mean that I'm overqualified? No, that's not what it means. We're given a range by the company that this position offers, okay? So if the position is a position that is a 75 to 85 range and you're looking for 90 to 100 and you tell me that in the interview, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to dangle a carrot in front of your face and make you go through all the hoops of the interview process just to get you to the end and offer you something that is considerably lower than your range. I know that money is not everything, but it is very important, and it is probably the most important thing of accepting the offer, because this is your range. This is what you are worth. This is what it takes for you to pay your bills and put food on the table for your family. This is what you spent your career moving up through the ranks to get to that range. This is your range. So definitely know your range. Now, I know things have shifted a little bit with the pandemic. In our industry, people are taking cuts, so it's going to take a little bit more work on your end. But I would say check out LinkedIn, Glassdoor. I would talk to your network, people who have the same types of positions that you have. Speak to people who have that same position that you hold and see if they'll share what their salary range is. I think most importantly, something that people don't do enough, and I don't mind these DMs or these phone calls at all. Reach out to a recruiter. Reach out to a third-party headhunter and find out somebody who's in your niche. So if you're in hospitality and you want to know, hey, what does a DOS in this area of Florida make? I can tell you, I talk about this all day with candidates. I speak to candidates and employers every single day. So I know what the going rate is, and I know what's going on in the industry at the moment. I know if things have been taking 20% cuts because I'm hearing about it all day long. So use a resource like a headhunter and see if you can get that range from them. Now, it's important to know your range for many reasons, but I'm just going to shoot from the hip and tell you how I see it as a recruiter. And again, I'm a headhunter, a third-party recruiter, And I also spent 17 years on the corporate side, so I can definitely shed some light on what they're seeing. So I'm going to give you both angles. So knowing your range is important. Now, in the beginning of the interview process, most recruiters, like recruiters or hiring managers, people in the beginning of the process, most of them are going to talk range because they have a field of candidates and they're working through that field and they're narrowing it down to some contenders. And as much as you might have all the skills and everything that they need, if you're out of the range, that's just not within their budget. So if you have a range, that's going to help them narrow down their pipeline. Most recruiters and most companies are going to address this in the beginning of the interview process. So the phone screen or the first Skype interview, the first step in the process, they're going to ask you what your range is typically. And this is a good thing because if you know your worth, you know your range, this is going to help not waste your time. That's why it's very important that you know this number. Now, sometimes I know there's candidates out there that are nervous, they're scared, they don't want to shoot too low, and they also don't want to shoot too high and lose the opportunity. In my opinion, if you're nervous about giving a too high of a number, right, and you're worth that number that you're asking for, you should be transparent and stick with it. You really should, because ultimately, if you get in a position, you just take a position to get a job, it's going to catch up to you financially. So you have to stick to your guns on this. This is why it's really important to do the research and just have that confidence in that number that you have. Now there's another scenario. A lot of candidates out there are working through their network and they're getting referrals. And this is a great way to get into a company where you were referred from somebody who's already internal. These ones move by a lot quicker. And a lot of times, salary's not really brought up until later on. So this is a little bit of a tricky one to navigate through, right? You have to know your range, and if you see an opportunity to bring it up in the interview process, politely bring it up. And for whatever reason, I'm hearing this from people who are finding jobs through referrals or knowing somebody who works within the company and they're just being brought into the process, which again is a great thing. But sometimes the salary is just not brought up initially in the beginning. So this one, just be a little bit more careful about. I would say something during the first interview at the end, because, at the end of the interview, they're always going to ask you if you have any questions, hopefully. And at that time, I would say something to the interviewer like, I really respect your time and I know you're extremely busy. I just want to know if you could share with me what the salary range is for this position. So you're asking politely, you're putting the respect into their time, and you're saying it's not wasting their time. You're not saying, oh, I don't want to waste my time. You don't want to say that. I mean, I get it, but you just want to let them know that you do respect their time and you want to be polite about how you bring up the salary. Now, in my last tip, you did hear me bring up how I go first when I ask for the range, okay? Now, there's some debate out there, and I'm sure there's going to be someone watching this video that might not agree. So let me be clear. There is no right or wrong way with this one either, okay? Most recruiters, most hiring managers are going to ask you, the candidate, what is your salary range? And some of you out there don't want to disclose it. You just want to say, well, can you tell me what the range is? Now, some companies will tell you, but then some do not want to, because, like myself, I'm speaking for myself here, because I want to hear transparently through you what you are looking for. I don't want you to base your range on something I tell you. So if I give you a range that's 80 to 90, right, and you're making 120, but you're really desperate right now, and then you just tell me, yeah, 80 to 90 is good, that kind of shoots me in the foot later on. Because if I present you, and you in the back of your mind want 120, but you told me 80 to 90 is good, and I gave you the range, right? Then at the job offer, there's a big chance that you might not like the offer, and then you might go back and try to counter, which would do a couple things. It would make me look bad as a recruiter, because when I present your information with your salary range, it makes it look like I lied on my nomination letter. And it also might get frustrating to the company because they did the whole song and dance with you, presented the offer, and now you think it's considerably low. So that's a big reason why a lot of recruiters are going to push back and ask for your range first, so we can get a true and honest answer from you without you basing it on what we give you. That's the truth. I think a lot of candidates out there maybe get upset and think that us recruiters are asking for you to go first so we can get the range and give you a lower offer. That's not the case, okay? If you tell me 50 to 60 and the position's a 70K role, the company is not going to try to offer you something $20,000 less most of the time. Good companies aren't going to do that. You want to know why? Because they want to retain you. A good company is going to want to retain you. Now, again, we could get into negotiating later on. But when you give your range, I wouldn't be so focused on that standoff on who goes first, okay? You can try, you can ask, what is the range? And then if the recruiter pushes back and says, well, I'd like to hear your range, would you be able to share that with me first? I wouldn't harp on that too much. But hey, that's just my opinion, so just wanted to tell you kind of how I see it as a recruiter. So another point I want to bring up is not just knowing your range, but knowing when to walk. Knowing that hard number, that top of the range, that top of your range, that if you're presented with anything lower than that, you're gonna walk. Now the recruiter and the company, we know what our mark is. We know that number that we can't go above. So if we present an offer and you can't accept it at that, we went to the top of the market, we'll basically say, it's firm here, there's no more room to negotiate. We know our mark. You should know yours as well. All right? That's going to give you even more confidence as you go through the interview process and you know your range. So know when to walk. Another thing to take in consideration is the entire benefit package. What is the company providing? Maybe their health and dental insurance is 100% paid or very aggressive. And maybe they have a lot more PTO than the other positions you're applying for, and vacation, and 401ks. What's their company match? If you're in hospitality, a lot of general managers out there and directors get parking and dry cleaning and cell phones and company laptops. I mean, there is an entire package to put into consideration. So I would definitely bring that up when you are talking salary in the beginning of the interview. See what kind of information you can get about the package. If the recruiter doesn't have it all recruiters will say, I don't have all that information for you right now, but let me get with HR, I'll get the info and I'll shoot it right over to you. That's definitely something that is easily attainable. And the last thing to think about is negotiation, salary negotiation. So if you're working with a recruiter like myself, I'm acting as the agent for you, the candidate, and the client. So I'm the middleman. So it is sometimes easier if you are working with a recruiter, because I know that gives candidates a little bit more confidence. They can tell the recruiter everything and not feel like they're annoying their future employer. And then we will act on behalf of you and tell the client and then come back to you. But if you are interviewing with the company, that's a little bit more nerve-wracking, right? Because now you don't want to sound like you're being too needy. And if you don't ask for everything during the interview process, you might be kicking yourself in the butt later on. So I would definitely recommend going all in and just putting it out there. They're not going to take back their offer. If you're going too high or you're asking for too much, they're not going to rescind it. They're not going to do it. I've never heard them do that. If they're going through the process with you and they already identified you as a fit, that's just going to be a complete waste of their time. The worst that can happen is they're not going to give you everything that you wanted, and then you can decide if you want to accept it. But definitely try to negotiate at the end. You'll feel so much better, so much more relieved, and you won't be kicking yourself again in the butt for forgetting to ask for something. So try it. Just have that range and that walking mark in your mind while you're at that negotiation process. Now, I know I just rapid fired some things off the top of my head, and this video is probably a lot more unorganized than most that I've done, but I really wanted to address this because for some reason, this week and last week alone, I had a ton of people reaching out to me asking me how to negotiate during a salary. And I just felt it would be to my best interest to post a video about it and just address those topics. So I hope this video helped. If you have any questions or comments, you can write it in the comments section below. I will answer any of your comments that you put down there. If you want to send me a personalized email, you can email me at jeremy@geckohospitality.com. I have plenty of videos out there. In fact, I just did a video about the top 3 questions to ask at the end of the interview, which would also go really well with this video. I'll put a comment for it right up here. And also, please don't forget to like this video if you like the content that I'm sharing, subscribe to this channel, and ring that notification bell for weekly updates on this channel. Again, I know I said it before, but I'll be doing this every single week to provide content for candidates and recruiters to navigate this current hiring market. So I'm Jeremy Nichols, and I hope you have a great week.